Hey guys, Andrew Marsh here with Drew Fit. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the 7 food diet that I did for the past 30 days. That's right, people, just 7 foods for the past 30 days. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not recommending anybody do this diet. I'm just going to share with you my experience, and if it makes sense to you to try it, go ahead. I personally noticed great things within my health, whether it was better strength gains in the gym, better improvements in my sleep, an enhanced mood, better digestion, lowered stress levels. So I'll break it down for you guys in a food pyramid way. I'll start off with the first foods that I consume the most of, and then break it down to the foods that I didn't consume that much. Really, guys, this was probably 5 foods that I ate for the past 30 days consistently, but there were a couple foods that I threw in there a couple times throughout the weeks while I was practicing carb backloading. So I could even title this 5 foods for 30 days. So number one, guys, the number one food that I ate the most of was grass-fed ground beef. Now, why grass-fed ground beef? Well, simple. It hit my macros that I was aiming for proteins and fats, but I also wanted to make sure I was getting my micronutrients as well, because micros are equally more important than hitting your macros, which is another reason why I did not eat foods like chicken, pork, turkey, or anything like that, because their micronutrient content does not add up to the micronutrient content of grass-fed beef. Also, I was consuming beef that was 80% lean and 20% fat about 90% of the time. If it wasn't that, then it was 85-15. And the reason I stuck with a higher fat content ratio is because usually when I'm eating that much protein, I really want to balance it out with that much fat as well. And due to it having a higher fat content, it also contains a lot more valuable nutrients. So for the ground beef, I was eating anywhere from at least 1 pound a day to 2 pounds per day of ground beef. Most of the time, though, it would be 2 pounds because my activity levels were pretty high, which required me to have more protein and more fat. Number 2 food I ate the most of next was eggs, guys. I am a huge fan of eggs. Again, just like the ground beef, they're great for protein and great for fat, as long as you're eating both the white and the yolk. You can't throw out the yolk, people. I can't stress that enough. That's where all of the nutrients are. But just like the ground beef, eggs also come with a wide array of vitamins and nutrients, which is why I consumed so many of them. We're talking from a dozen a day upwards. On a couple days, I was eating 2 dozens of eggs. One, just like the ground beef, in my area, I can get it for relatively cheap. I think a dozen was $2. So I was really getting a lot of bang for my buck. But I want to be clear here, guys, you have to get healthy eggs from a free-range source. Number 3 food I was consuming most was raw milk, guys. This is probably one of my favorite foods out there simply because of its nutrient content. It has about every amino acid, every good enzyme. It has such a wide array of nutrients. It's kind of mind-blowing because I would put it up there with maybe the number 1 superfood that you can be consuming. But I want to stress, guys, it has to be raw and it has to be grass-fed. When you get it pasteurized, all of that does is just kill off all the enzymes and a lot of the beneficial nutrients in milk. That's why milk gets a bad rap, and that's why people are allergic to dairy. It's because they're consuming dairy that doesn't have the necessary enzymes to break down the proteins inside of the milk. But if you do have a serious intolerance to dairy, then I would recommend consuming raw goat milk. You would get the same benefits essentially. But things I noticed with the raw milk: an enhancement in my recovery after the gym, muscle gains are fantastic, and I notice when I drink it before I go to bed, I get a very nice deep sleep. I was probably consuming anywhere from 1 to 2 gallons a week, depending on my activity levels that week. The number 4 food I was consuming the most of, guys, was raw beef liver. I was probably consuming anywhere from 1 ounce to 4 ounces per day. Now, the reason being with the raw liver, number 1, I eat it raw because its nutrients would be a lot more bioavailable than when you cook it and you start to kill off some of the nutrients. But again, I looked at eating the raw beef liver as really that's my daily multivitamin. When you take a look at raw liver's nutrient content, there's really not another food out there that can compare. I would probably put it as number 1 most beneficial organ meat that you could be consuming. And another reason, guys, I love eating raw liver right in the morning instead of drinking a cup of coffee. It really gives you that boost, that mental alertness that you get when you drink coffee, except without all the jitterness and no caffeine, obviously. And again, guys, if you're going to eat raw, make sure it's coming from a grass-fed source. And that's also another food that is relatively inexpensive and you can get a lot of it. Number 5 food I ate the most of was going to be raw honey, guys. I fell in love with raw honey earlier this month, and I just added it to my daily routine. And now it's probably a food I'm going to keep adding on for a very long time. Reason being, as you see on this diet, it's very low carbohydrate, so I definitely needed to enter some good carbohydrates, and I kind of gave up all fruits and vegetables, but I did go to honey and found great results with consuming honey. And I only do about 1 to maybe 3 tablespoons per day of honey. Again, this depends on my activity level, but again, the honey is something that also has really good nutrients, a lot of good enzymes. It's a very good antibacterial, antifungal food to be consuming, so there are a lot of benefits that come from consuming honey. But again, it can't just be any honey, it has to be from a good quality source. Now, a lot of you might be thinking this sounds like a strict carnivore diet, but the reason why I added honey in and why I'm not keeping it low carb is because I do follow the routine of carb backloading, and that's what works great for me when it comes to building muscle and maintaining the muscle day after day. I notice if I go too low carbohydrate for too long, I begin to lose muscle mass. So adding honey was a great addition to my routine at helping build and maintain muscle mass. Which brings me to number 6 food. Now, the next 2 foods I'm going to talk about, I only did probably 2 or 3 times throughout the week at the very most. And again, this plays into the whole carb backloading idea, saving my carbohydrates for the evening hours. So number 6 food that I consumed the most of next was wild rice or white rice. There's nothing spectacular about the rice's nutrient content. All it really does is hit the macros for carbohydrates. For me, that's important because I am a thinner person, and for me to put on muscle mass, I do require carbohydrates. If I didn't, then I'd probably have to be eating upwards of 4 to 5 pounds of ground beef a day, which doesn't sound too pleasing for me or my wallet. So rice definitely did the trick. And number 7, now again, this was another food I'd have on my carb nights, and that was ice cream. I probably only had that 1 or 2 nights of the week. And the number 7 food, guys, was ice cream. I had that probably 1 to 2 nights per week. Now, there's nothing magnificent about its nutrient content. I did go with a higher quality source that was heavier in fats and cream. But again, the overall goal was to increase my carbohydrates on days that I worked out. So that's why I was consuming the rice and why I was consuming the ice cream. And it actually worked out fantastic because when you follow the science of carb backloading, you're not eating those kind of foods all the time, just once or twice a week. And you're using it towards your benefit to help build muscle, help build up your metabolism, and help maintain muscle mass for longer durations. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about the 7 food diet, please drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.